Teachers may have classes with learners with a wide range of language proficiencies. This can be a problem for the teacher because some of the learners in the class are very high proficiency learners, while some are really struggling to learn the language. Teachers need to have ways of dealing with this wide range of proficiency within a class. No matter how carefully the learners have been streamed into classes, after a week or two it becomes very clear that there is a wide range of proficiency levels. Here are some suggestions about how to deal with classes with a wide range of proficiency levels. The main model that we're going to follow in dealing with this problem is the criterion of class or group size. So if you want to deal with learners with a wide range of proficiencies, you need to do individual work which suits those learners. You need to do pair work which takes account of the wide range of proficiencies. And you need to do class work which takes account of the whole wide range of proficiencies. Let's look at individual work first. We'll look at some activities where each individual in the class can actually be doing material which is at the right level for them, so that not all learners are working on the same material, but each individual is working on material suited to their level. The most obvious activity for this is extensive reading, because in extensive reading, the learners choose texts which are at the right level for them. And it's really important that the extensive reading library that the learners are using has a wide range of graded readers from different vocabulary levels. 10-minute writing, a fluency development activity, is another activity where it doesn't matter if learners are at different proficiency levels. Each learner writes at the level that suits them. If some learners in the class are very low proficiency learners, rather than get them to do 10-minute writing, you might get them to do 5 or 7-minute writing because 10 minutes might be too challenging for them. But in 10-minute writing, each person is doing their own writing on a topic that suits them and on a topic that's familiar with them. Writing with feedback is another individual activity. This means that learners do a piece of careful writing and the teacher responds to that writing, guiding them by correcting the errors and giving suggestions to improve the piece of writing. In such an activity, it doesn't matter if the learners are from a range of proficiency levels. The teacher responds to each one individually. Prepared talks is another activity where learners work at their own level of proficiency. Lower proficiency levels can choose topics more suitable to them. They may not need to give such a long talk as learners who are at higher proficiency levels. Let's now look at pair and group activities. The 4-3-2 activity is a pair activity. And when the learners work in pairs, the teacher should try to put learners in pairs where each learner is of roughly equal proficiency, so that the learner listening is at roughly the same level of proficiency as the learner speaking. The 4-3-2 activity then involves learners giving the talk 3 times, each time to a different listener, and the teacher needs to organize the pairs so that when they change partners, another low proficiency or high proficiency learner comes to listen, and that learner is at the right level for the learner who's speaking. Conversation groups also need to be organized according to proficiency levels. Learners should be in roughly equal proficiency groups. The work on conversation groups shows that if learners are at roughly the same proficiency level within a group, they tend to get roughly an equal amount of talking time within the group. If you mix learners of high and low proficiency levels in the same group, you will find that the high proficiency learners tend to dominate most of the talking time. So in some group activities, it's quite good to have a mixture of proficiency levels, because higher proficiency learners can then help lower proficiency learners. But in conversation groups where we want a roughly equal amount of speaking, it's important that the groups are organized according to proficiency level. The linked skills activity can also be adapted to learners at different proficiency levels. Linked skills activities can involve individual work and pair work, and so the same text could be worked on at various levels of proficiency. The third kind of solution to learners with varied proficiency levels is whole class activities. Some whole class activities are particularly suited to having a mixture of proficiency levels in the class. There's a very interesting activity which does this. It's called the Blackboard Reproduction Exercise. What the teacher does is to write a text on the blackboard. It can be a paragraph from something the learners have read, or it could be a really simple poem. And the learners see the text on the blackboard, and then the teacher picks one of the learners to read it out aloud. After the learner has read it, the teacher then goes through rubbing out some of the words, and then picks on another learner to read the text again. But this time, the learner has to fill in the missing words from memory. That is, the learner has to retrieve the missing words from their memory. When you do this activity with a mixed proficiency class, you get the lower proficiency levels to do the early reading of the text, and you get the higher proficiency learners to do the reading of the text when many of the words have been rubbed out. When you do this activity, eventually the learners read the text 10 or 12 times or so, and each time the teacher rubs out more words. And it's a big challenge for the learners to be able to retrieve those words from memory. So it's an activity which really gets their attention. But it's very easy in such an activity to get the low proficiency levels learners doing the easy work and the higher proficiency learners doing the more demanding work. So when faced with the problem of a mixture of proficiency levels, you need to look across individual work to see how you can deal with that. You need to look across pair work to see when is it good to use groups of the same proficiency, when is it good to use groups of mixed proficiency, where the more proficient learners are teaching the less proficient learners. And it's good to look at whole class activities to see when's the most appropriate time to give the low proficiency learners a chance to perform and the high proficiency learners a chance to perform.